Years ago, the team that I was doing ministry with and I realized that we were all being drawn toward the same sense of what should be the central purpose and organizing principle of church. It all coalesced around the idea of equipping ourselves and others to live boldly. That the purpose of church and of our church was to equip people to live boldly. Of course, no sooner had we come to that conclusion than we realized that now we had to be able to articulate what living bold looked like. So we gathered a group of lay leaders to join us in that conversation, and what came up was beautiful and wide-ranging. Words like inspired, open-ended, trusting, tenacious, responsible, independent, aware of fear but choosing not to give into it, accepting sacrifice as fundamental but not being willing to sacrifice what is central, the willingness to make mistakes, flexibility, claiming who you were, not expecting adulation, acting without guarantees. Boldness, someone said, was respecting the fool in us, the one willing to be laughed at when they spoke, even the truth, while also respecting the fullness within us. Of course, there is much that works against such a life, or we'd all be doing it all the time, right? I mean, those words sound like a great way to live. At the core of the resistance, we realized, was pretty clearly fear, all kinds of fear. Fear that we'll embarrass ourselves or that we'll fail, that we'll risk change and not like life on the other side of that change, fear that people won't like us or that we will hurt feelings or alienate those around us when we claim this new kind of personal authority. And all of those are legitimate fears. We can fail. We won't know what to expect when we begin. Some folks are always challenged by changes in their loved ones, even when those changes are good ones. In addition, we can and certainly do put up a lot of amazing roadblocks to our own motivations to live our dreams. Lots of really good excuses, one person said to me once when explaining why he hadn't let his dreams, or how and why he had let his dreams be set aside. Then he said, one day I realized, in the end, all I'd be left with were good excuses. That revelation for him was the beginning of an incredible leap into public life. Sometimes it is an epiphany like that that helps us find a way to overcome our resistance to change, to leap out of the tree and find, in fact, that we can fly, that we are a different animal than we thought ourselves, knew ourselves previous to be. The key can be to just get out of our own way, if we can figure out how to do that. Rick Warren is the minister to the unchurched in California. He started a church many of you know about. He started it doing focus groups outside the local grocery store in, I think, Orange County, California, because he knew he wanted to plant a congregation there based on demographic trends. And he asked people who didn't already have a church what stopped them from going. The result, as most of you know, was his Saddleback congregation with its rock and roll music, although now there are tents set up so you can choose the gospel music or country and western or rock and roll with the sermon piped in at the right time. Comfortable theater seats, I'm sure you're wishing for one of those right about now. And his, then at least, signature Sunday garb of a Hawaiian shirt, which are back in fashion, I think. Always in fashion, I guess. The model has been replicated infinite times since then. And Saddleback, the mother church of this rethinking, is still going strong. In 2017, their average Sunday attendance was 22,000 people. So he knows a little about bold living. In one of his books, he said that bold living starts with ambition. Make no mistake, he writes, we are meant to have ambition for our own lives, for our relationships, for the world. It's not a bad word. Next, he said, though, we have to be mindful of at least two tempting falsehoods that delude us into not putting our ambitions into practice. The first among these lies is the one that's told in a lot of religious institutions that says that smallness is a virtue. Smallness is a virtue. People have said to me, I serve God in my little way. And my reply is, well, why don't you start serving God in a bigger way? Let God use more of you. A second misconception that gets in our way is the one he said that would confuse contentment with laziness. He said we can and should love our lives, but that doesn't mean that we don't also hold up dreams for them, that we lean hard into. So, for instance, he said we should love and cherish our partner, but have ambitions that the relationship will grow deeper and more intimate. And we should love our work and still hope it will always make more use of more of our gifts. And we can and should love our congregations and still dream that they can serve a wider embrace of people, heal and love and transform greater swaths of parched landscapes wherever they lie. A friend pointed out years ago that they thought that becoming a Unitarian Universalist is for many a bold act, being or becoming one. Indeed, for the 90% of our folks, coming here has meant a decision to leave a faith they grew up in. Or if they grew up unchurched, as is increasingly the case, then it's the bold act of walking into the foreign territory of church for the first time. For everyone here, including our lifers, it has meant answering the question of where you are on Sunday morning with a big mouthful of words for a little-known faith that prompts further questions, that forces you to say things like non-creedal, which makes a lot of people cock their heads, or people of different faiths together in one community and no need to believe in God, which together confuses and scares great segments of this country's population who have a particular idea of what constitutes real religion, and it doesn't include any of those answers. And mind you, we are not perfect in living our espoused values. This last week, some of you know, hosted a fierce debate about an article in the newest issue of our UU World, our denominational magazine, an article called After L, G, and B, that hurt our trans siblings, and it pulled back the veil on some need for serious reflection and work as a movement, as people. And it is also true that unlike our United Methodist siblings last month, we are not still debating whether our GLBTQI siblings are a blessing from God. That answer is a resounding yes with every breath. The challenge we have is living better the love and respect we espouse. All of which is to say that being Unitarian Universalist means, in part, that we are lucky, I suppose, to already have had a lot of experience being bold. Lately, I have noticed too, though, how this community goes one step further. How it has a habit, I would say, of nurturing and giving refuge to the bold. And I want to give you two examples of what I mean, in case you haven't been there to see what I've seen. At the board retreat this fall, we were asked to write a list of all the things we had accomplished in the last year. The list that went up spoke of an ambitious, tough, and idealistic group, and a busy one. In a year, we had weathered things like hard conversations that you're aware of about financial realities, and we'd come out stronger. We'd hired an intern who turns out to have been one of the best decisions of the year. And I'm not just saying that because I think her parents are here. And then someone brought forth a challenge about where our justice and equity work was in the set of goals we've been working through, our developmental goals. And the board had a rich discussion, and then it added to the developmental goals what I will call the lens of wholeness, which is to say that from that moment on, we were and are to bring an eye toward how we are serving equity and inclusion in all of our work. And so we started having a lot more conversations this year about race and equity. I hope you've noticed. The Human Rights Working Group launched the We the Beloved video project, which just got accepted as a workshop at this year's General Assembly, which, for those of you who don't know what that means, it's the annual gathering of UUs from all over the country. And our mission vision process will be led by Diane Johnson, who some of you had a chance to meet, who brings not just enormous organizational consulting experience and formal religious training, but also this lens of wholeness and experience around that to the work. And thanks to a Hinckley grant, she will be our partner, which is not an accident. We looked hard to find her. None of this is accidental. It's all about being an ally to boldness, I think. Or as a second example, come with me back to last Saturday. Do you remember it was cold and wet? It was the kind of night that no one who doesn't have to leave home, who has a home that they don't have to leave, would. And it is the night of our spaghetti dinner, where we honor social justice heroes in the wider world. Upwards of 90 people came out in that weather to be there. Some were our members, but also our neighbors from the Lutheran Church, who just voted recently to become a sanctuary church and were toasted at the event. A whole bunch of activist friends were there in that room. Leaders from Church Women United, a lead activist for the homeless that I met, members of the Progressive Democrats, and artists and musicians, not to mention our honorees. Among those there is the Public Defender's Office of San Francisco, who's being honored that Saturday night, many of their lawyers and family members. After an awful week of having lost Jeff Adachi, I didn't expect them to show up. And I tell Michael Hinckley, one of their lead attorneys, that we would have understood if they hadn't come. He says, nodding his head, "Yeah, Matt Gonzalez wouldn't let us miss it." And he and I look over, and Matt and his colleagues and their families and other guests are sitting and talking and smiling and laughing, and Mike thinks out loud that this might be the first time he has seen Matt smiling all week. The truth is, everyone is having a great time. And it occurs to me that for everyone in that room, all of whom are fighting the good fight all the time, here is this safe night in a safe place among people who see their work and know it as good and hard, a people who know and nourish boldness where they find it. The Reiner Award winners, their portraits are right outside that room, right? Photos of people whose lives testified to their values being served boldly in the world, and a testament to a community that sees and loves and treasures them and that about them. What an incredible gift to offer the world. It has me wondering if maybe this is our superpower. That we Unitarian Universalists in general, but particularly in this community, have both the ability and the inclination to liberate one another for passionate work in the world, and that we cheerlead and support the bold outside our doors, offer them a place to renew and to recover. Maybe we're like the safe tree, you might say, that folks can return to after heady bouts of risky flying, to eat a few nuts, take in the view, laugh with some of the other bold forest animals, and rest and leap again. That's my thought about what may be at our core. That, and also a love boat kind of welcome and joy. I'll circle back to the beginning of the year. The kind that was actually present last night, wasn't it, Mark? At the Broadway sing-along, where Boldness also showed up as solos that were sung after a couple glasses of wine and 2 supportive applause. Laughter and love and a people so bold. Next weekend on Saturday is this Mission Vision World Cafe event. If you haven't signed up, please do. Please throw your ideas and dreams into the mix. Let them not be small. And so you know, the annual goals for our giving are just plans to strengthen what we're already doing and extend the reach a little. Come to the luncheon, find out more about it, or come talk to me if you have questions. And thank you. Thank you all in advance for digging deep. However big your budget is to make these efforts possible, as everybody has in this space every year for 130 years. Because it's all of you who make everything possible. You've got to know that by now. So thank you. And if it makes you afraid or nervous, all that, remember the words of poet Audre Lorde, who wrote, "When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid." Or as one woman without half the advantages with which most of us started life once wrote, "Life is either a daring adventure or nothing." So my friends, pledge like it matters, because it does. Come next Saturday and help us chart a future. Come ambitious for us. And wherever we go together, may we leap and find that we can fly. Amen.